Well, we record these sober and in the morning, and we get them done in like an hour and a half. It's
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, that that's, I mean, it's a little bit less fun, but it's probably a better show in some ways. I don't know.
Mm,
We also didn't go for like 30 minutes and talk about like random nonsense and piss off
right.
Mike Murphy. So
The following podcast may contain adult language and conversations revolving around situations not suitable for immature audiences. Spoilers and general political incorrectness can often be expected, so listener discretion is advised.
They must be destroyed on sight.
Okay, welcome back to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. We're at episode 96 now, and I'm your host, Lee Russell, joined by my co-host, Daniel Harper. How you doing, sir?
I'm not addicted to heroin, if that helps. I haven't leaked a toilet bowl this week.
Yeah, but you do live in a country that's rife with helpless, oppressive corruption, though.
Yes, and lots of prostitutes, lots of pretty young blonde prostitutes. Only over here, what we have to do is we have to prostitute ourselves for basic health care as opposed to high-end drugs.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, so we're back. We're still on our crime film kick. We're going to be looking at two Poliziotteschi's again this time out. Before we get into that, we do have some comments to get through, so I'll try to skirt through these really quick. On our White Heat and Night and the City episode, we have CB Fall chiming in saying amazingly interesting reviews on both movies. Mike Murphy from Badasses, Boobs, and Body Counts, who's going to be on this show in a few episodes, said, I enjoyed this one, boys. I need to take the noir dive. It's a genre film I know little about. Yeah, I might actually get back to you on that, Mike, see if I can find some noirs that sort of fit the more trashy stuff that you guys cover on BB and BC. See if you can work some of this stuff into your actual show. That'd be fun.
Sure. Well, some of the 70s some of the two movies we're covering today would kind of fit into the BB and BC mythos, and yet kind of have a noirish feel. Certainly, The Police Serve the Citizens does. It has a strong noirish feel, but that's 70s and Italian as opposed to American. And but yeah, no, I would love to listen to those guys do some straight up noir sometime.
Well, I can't remember if they've done it or not. Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, because that's a straight up basically just gore movie with noir kind of trappings. And our friend Jack Graham says, I met Googie Withers. I was backstage at Wyndham's Theatre in London meeting Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwick, who were doing The Secret of Sherlock Holmes, and in walks Googie Withers. True story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He didn't go on.
Yeah.
He did.
I would imagine. He obviously slept with her, right? Like,
yeah.
Just assume that happened.
I'm kind of thinking that's how the story ended. Yes.
Yeah.
He's just protecting the lady's honor.
Yeah.
That's what
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But Jack Graham doesn't walk in. You're not behind a theater with Jack Graham and not have sex with him. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Every time we podcast with him, our panties drop to the floor. So
my panties drop to the floor when you're around, and when the two of you, it's just like might as well just there's just no hope for me.
Yeah, it's a curse.
You're like that guy in Hamburger the movie, the lead in Hamburger the movie.
I actually have to turn women down. Yeah, it's so terrible. And I got some feedback on the Blood on the Tracks episode I did. Ryan Egan, who's a member from the Facebook group. By the way, They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook. Join up in the group if you want to keep up to date with what we're doing. He said, I enjoyed this immensely, Lee. I used to be a disc jockey in my college days. This is quite an excellent show. I'm so glad that you love the soundtrack to Sorcerer as much as I do. I can't wait to hear more of these wonderful film scores. Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, that was a good episode. And you know what the best thing about it was? I wasn't on it.
But we will be working you and Paul into some of these for sure in the future. Although it'll be interesting to see how we do that. We're going to have to maybe like each come together with playlists and stuff, and there's more pre-recording and then stuffing it in between music than what we do here on They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. So
yeah, this is basically just I get to hang out with Lee once a week and talk about movies and do a varying amount of work ahead of time.
Yeah. But, at the end of the month, the next episode of Blood on the Tracks is going to be all blaxploitation stuff, so look forward to that.
Nice.
Yeah, and now we can move on to what we've watched in the last little while. I know you don't have anything, Daniel, so I'll just briefly mention what I have been watching. Don't really have any new movies to mention, but I have been binge watching Better Call Saul on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
how was that? How are you finding it?
I really enjoy it. I almost kind of enjoy it more than Breaking Bad, actually.
I heard that a lot. I have not pulled the trigger on that one yet. It's on my to watch list. But then again, I didn't catch up with Breaking Bad until after it'd been out for 5 years. So I figure I still got a few years to get caught up with Better Call Saul. But yeah, I've heard that it's a very different show. That it's much less sort of thematically weighted and more kind of straightforward and character based.
Yeah, it's more of a character study kind of thing. It's a bit more lightweight. It's not as deadly serious as Breaking Bad almost always is.
Right.
And I mean, Bob Odenkirk's just fucking excellent in it. I think what's really attractive about this is since we've just been doing so many crime films and we've been like looking at sleazy characters in noir, the little scumbag type of people and who tend to populate these films. I mean, Saul is just straight up one of those characters. He's just in a modern context that we don't have in most of the movies we've watched. So yeah, it's fun to just sort of. There's almost an element of Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's almost an element of that to it.
Well, it's Bob Odenkirk, and it's really amazing that he's gotten this sort of late career resurgence as this character. Just because, I mean, it's really nice to see because, Mr. Show was a while ago now, and he seemed to never really find another thing that was his. That could really like showcase him, but he's so good in this, and I think I remember something like he was. Like, they just sort of asked him. They didn't think he'd say yes, and they only thought it was going to be for, like, an episode or a couple of episodes, and then it ends up being this because he's so good, But that's how they made Breaking Bad. It was very, very little of that was really planned out. More than a few episodes ahead, for much of the runtime of that. It was all very organic, so it makes sense.
But after watching the first 2 seasons that are on Netflix, I actually... It made me go back and watch Breaking Bad just so I could catch the episodes with him on it. And I've been doing that now. It's a seamless sort of transition. Like, he just shifts over from the more lighthearted, comical stuff in the actual Saul series and somehow still makes that character work on Breaking Bad when he's just... That character should not work on Breaking Bad, but it does really well. And it just made me appreciate the performance even more after watching the first 2 seasons. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll have to catch up with that sometime soon.
It's an easy binge too. It's only 10 episodes a season, so it's
nice.
It's not bad.
Yeah, no, my wife could never get into Breaking Bad, so I've been trying to not watch stuff that she doesn't like around her. But yeah, no, one of these days I'll catch up with it. I'd love to chat about it sometime.
Right on. Okay, so we're going to take a quick little break, and then when we come back, we're going to look at our first film, The Police Serve the Citizens? ? And...
Bad movies. The world is full of them. From low-budget crap fests to downright unwatchable. And only 2 men are willing to watch them all. So climb in and take your seat. This is Short Bus Cinema.
Let's do it.
Hey everyone, this is Johnny Krug from Kruger Nation.
And this is Rick Morgan from the Helming Power Hour.
We have decided to team up and take you where no one has gone before.
We're on a quest to find the world's worst movie, and we're doing it on the bus.
Driving through cult classics in every genre to find holy grail of bad movies.
So if you're looking for something different and more fun than you can stand, then climb on in.
Short Bus Cinema is a proud member of Legion Podcasts.
That's right, yo!
Short Bus Cinema. We love to watch the movies you hate.
Looking for something different in your podcast library? Then why not check out the Podcast Under the Stairs? I'm the host Duncan McLeish, and joining me each week will be a special guest as we examine some classic, old school horror favourites, as well as some modern classics. That's not to say that we don't tackle some of the, let's say, more questionable entries into the horror genre. And if all that wasn't enough, we have a subset of shows called Baz v Horror, where our horror novice, the Baz, tackles horror in all shapes and forms to see who will come out victorious. So what are you waiting for? The show can be found at podcastunderthestairs.wordpress.com and on Stitcher and iTunes. The Podcast Under the Stairs is a proud member of Legion Podcast Network. This is Duncan McLeish from Under the Stairs, signing off.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How did you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Okay, The Police Serve the Citizens from 1973, directed by Romolo Guerrieri. I'm not even gonna. All I know is he's the uncle of Enzo Castellari. Oddly enough, so
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I actually do know another movie of his, Johnny Yuma from 1966, which is almost kind of a proto-spaghetti western. It's got some of those elements to it, but it's not quite a full-blown spaghetti western like we'd see from Leone and everything else afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I do know his work. Written by Massimo Dorita, who, at this point, I'm starting to think he wrote every fucking film that came out of Italy, because that name has popped up in several of our episodes now. It is starring Enrico Maria Salerno as Commissioner Nicola Cerrone. Interesting note about this gentleman, he actually did all the voice work for Clint Eastwood on the Italian version of Sergio Leone's Dollar Trilogy. So,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and he's also just a really well-known Italian actor too. Did a ton of shit. Giuseppe Pamberi as Commissioner Marino, John Steiner as Lambro, Venantino Venantini as Mancinelli, Alessandro Momo is as Michelle Cerrone, Mimo Carento as Baron, Marie-Sophie Presson as Christina, Daniel Galin as Pier Pialo Barrera, Gabriella Giorgelli as Eros the Prostitute, and Enzo Libriti as Green Grocer. And I'll let you get into a synopsis there, Daniel.
Sure. Well, this one was a little bit difficult because I didn't really have the time to write one, and there's not really a lot that's available on the internet for this.
Yeah.
The description you find if you Google this title in English is just, in Genoa, the Commissioner Cerrone has identified the leader of a ferocious racket that controls the port activities, but the law restrains his action. That's all you get.
Yeah.
I did, just now, as I considered it while you were talking, Google the film's Italian Wikipedia page, which, if you translate the Italian, it does have a fairly involved plot synopsis, which is actually too long to read here. But basically what you do is you've got this sort of plot involving this police inspector who is going up against the mob and is thwarted at all turns by corruption and a bureaucracy. The first half of the film is pretty straightforwardly just kind of the guy going after these dudes. And then kind of the second half, it converts into something that's a little bit more personality-based, because it turns out his partner, who's sort of a womanizing dude, he's kind of playing both sides, and he's a corrupt cop himself. And then that conflict kind of leads into these kind of final action sequences.
This really goes kind of slow at the start. Like it's not like what you see in a lot of the Poliziotteschi that we've covered. This is much more on the Revolver side of things, where there's a lot less action. It's much more the cat and mouse back and forth games that he's trying to play here to try to get into his investigation. This one, again, like you sort of mentioned, it kind of borders on the neo-noir a lot more.
Oh yeah, no, there's a strong noirish element to this.
Yeah,
definitely. It's got the kind of grittiness that you would expect in terms of the politics of it. It would be a really nice pairing with Revolver, actually.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that. I'm kind of thinking that if you did pair this with Revolver, that would be basically the most depressing movie night you could possibly have.
Right. And ironically, The Big Racket would pair really well with the other film we're going to do tonight. So,
Yeah. But what are your sort of initial thoughts on this one?
I really like this. It like Revolver, it kind of takes its time really getting to what it's really wanting to do. It's the first half, or at least the first 30 minutes or so, are kind of a little bit generic cop drama-y for me. There's a subplot involving the inspector's son that is meant to add pathos to this guy, but it kind of doesn't go anywhere. It feels like there might be a little bit of material on the cutting room floor there, or maybe just was never shot, I don't know. But it feels like there's a sort of subplot there that doesn't quite go anywhere. But overall, I think it's a really interesting look at this world. I mean, it compares to Revolver, and even compares favorably to Revolver in some ways.
Yeah.
It's more sophisticated in some ways than Revolver is. I really like the bad guy, sort of the smarmy rich asshole who's kind of pulling everybody's strings. I really love the way that so much of this is just out in the open. I mean, they're just saying, we can't do that because they're just open about the fact that they're just manipulating the press into doing things. I really love that aspect of it. I love some of the violence in the film. I love some of the chase scenes. I mean, it's a really good balance. I mean, because a lot of these things kind of sound really heady and morally weighted, and I think Revolver maybe pushes that direction a little bit too far. Not too far, but I mean, it kind of is pushed very much in that direction, whereas this sort of alternates a really nice kind of dramatic plot and sort of thematic elements. And then, it gives you a nice little chase scene every now and then to kind of break it up a bit. So it delivers it on both levels. And honestly, this may be on my best of the year list.
Oh, nice.
I really enjoyed this. I'm not sure. It's wavering on that. I'd have to watch it again before I could, kind of really, give my full stamp of approval on it. And there's a lot that I feel like just because I only really got the chance to watch this once, I really want to kind of a lot of the plot I didn't quite follow 100%, which is just sort of a problem that you run into with these things. Also, the subtitling, the version that I watched, like there are big sections of it where it feels like there's some detail that we miss, just because the subtitles literally just put question marks.
Right. It's
like, no, the thing that you need to know to understand this is, and then question marks.
Yeah.
Where whatever fan translated this just didn't know enough Italian, apparently. It was pretty amusing.
Because I assume we both got our versions of this off of Rare Lust, right?
Yep, that's where we got it. Apparently there is an Italian released DVD of it, but I couldn't find it like on Amazon, on US Amazon or anything, so...
Yeah, I think it straight up whoever runs Rare Lust actually did the subtitles for this. Right. Because they put it in the credits there. But sometimes it is really hard to pick up what's going on. Sometimes the question mark is obviously revolves around whatever sort of lists or, you know, like accounting lists or whatever for certain businesses and stuff. So you can kind of get that. It's like, okay, this is the evidence that will criminate the criminals and get the investigation pushed forward and get a prosecution going or whatever. But other times it's like, okay.
Well, there's a particular bit where the corrupt cop is sleeping with this girl, and he's given this girl some piece of evidence that is incriminating.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out what it was because the person who did the translation never could name it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what we're supposed to be getting. I mean, you know, again, these are the sorts of details that only matter to the degree that we're watching the film and we're trying to discuss it. Like, I don't really notice it just watching the film. It's just sort of like, oh, okay, it's fine. I don't need to know what that thing is. You know, it's the MacGuffin ultimately, and I don't want to warn people off of watching the film because it's really good and you should definitely go check it out. But it's harder because if we're trying to kind of discuss what exactly is going on, I feel like I need another watch or two to really like piece it together. I need to sit down with a notebook, which I didn't do with this one. But
yeah, this one does need a couple watches. I agree. Like, I had to watch it again this morning. I was glad actually that you rescheduled for us to do this review because I was like, yeah, I could use another pass at this, like, really quick and try to see if I pick up anything else, because it's one of these weird ones where it's something I really, really like, but I can't really go into great detail about why I like it.
First of all, can I just say I really appreciate actually getting to watch this in Italian without dubbing, just because dubbed films just bother the shit out of me on this. Like, they just irritate me. I'd rather just watch it in the original with subtitles. So I did appreciate that. That was really, really nice to kind of get that experience. And it does feel like it's something that's made a little bit more for the domestic Italian market, as opposed to something that was kind of built for export to quite the same degree, to where a lot of these films are really, I mean, you can kind of feel like, you know, when we get to the Heroin Busters, we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
But no, one of the things I really appreciated is the fact that it does sort of leave me a little bit cold. It's not holding my hand through certain sequences. It's just expecting me to just kind of follow along. Like, for instance, in sort of reading some commentary for the film, it's supposed to be really obvious that this film is set in Genoa. And I didn't get that at all because I'm not Italian in 1973. But I assume that, like, they're using these very specific shots that are used to establish that the film is set there, and they're trying to be saying something not just about, you know, Italian crime or some generic like mafia movie, but they're trying to say something about this particular time and place, which I just couldn't, I just didn't get, and didn't have the time to do the research to try to figure out what it's really trying to say, but. Overall, I really love the portrait of the corruption in this.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of LA Confidential, in that, you know, you've got the sort of media figures, you've got the kind of newspaper figures, you've got the police chief, and you know, even at the end, it's like, well, do you want to fire me, or do you want me to transfer me? And it's like, I don't know, we'd love to keep you. We just, you know, it's literally like, I mean, this isn't like shadowy businessmen in corners, you know, and like mood lighting. This is just how business is done. This is how this work is done. You know, this could have become a pretty generic kind of, you know, cop can't play by the rules, you know, kind of badass, you know, loose cannon kind of thing. What it does is it kind of takes that character, the loose cannon kind of cop, and then puts him in this world where being a loose cannon is kind of accepted, but as long as you don't go too far.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the guy literally gets people killed.
Yeah, I mean, he's a straight-laced cop for the most part, but he constantly just hits these roadblocks of just corruption and bureaucracy, and he finds himself continuing down a path of bending the rules and then flat out breaking them. It's very much like Revolver in the sense that, yeah, the people above him still want him as a cog in the wheel, you know, and they don't have I guess in this movie they just really don't have as much leverage to threaten him with as they did Oliver Reed in Revolver.
Right. Well, Oliver Reed in Revolver gets into like deep shit immediately, and then makes decisions to get himself deeper into shit. You know.
Yeah.
Whereas I mean that's deliberately extreme. You know. Whereas this doesn't do this is really just sort of like playing this as, you know, it makes it feel realistic. Like there's nothing there's very little in this film that makes me think like, oh well, that just would never happen. You know.
Yeah. because I kind of think like the subplot with the teenage son and his marriage and everything, that could have been just totally exercised from this film, and it would have made it even better.
It feels like they're trying to, I mean, and again, this is where I feel like it's sort of particular place and time. It feels like these are, essentially the children, the grandchildren of fascism, like responding to this, sort of encroaching police state, and kind of, this is what you run into, where the mafia is bad, but the people fighting the mafia are equally bad if you're just somebody and you're just caught in the middle. Right. And it's sort of like that's where our hero, our protagonist, is sort of in that place, where he's sort of in between, he's between the rock and the hard place. Not to use the cliche. Yeah. And his son is much more idealistic. His son is sort of like, no, we want you to, you stop being such a fucking fascist pig. and reasonably so, but the cop is kind of like, well, this is sort of what I have to do to sleep at night, so there is a real tension between, it's a generational tension, but it's also sort of an ideological tension, or even just I don't think that the father is even portrayed as wanting to be this. I think he's just, this is kind of what I have to do. Yeah. And it's a pragmatic versus ideological thing.
Yeah, he's just a good German, essentially. Right. Yeah, this is like, again, this is just so much like Revolver, where it just has that nihilistic hopelessness in the face of corruption. In here, the corruption isn't even as large scale as it is in Revolver, because this just revolves around the fuck.
This is a film in a chamber, revolving or no?
Nah, yeah, no. This is all centered around the port activities in Genoa. Like it's very much just, hey, we're going to screw the food people, the food manufacturers and distributors in this port facility, and it's an interesting little switch up on what you usually see. Like, you usually see mobsters, controlling gambling and booze and drugs and stuff, but here it's all just food distribution. So
right. Well, and not only is it feels kind of small scale for these kinds of films, and again, that's where, and I think that it's even more effective because it doesn't feel overblown. It doesn't feel like, oh, these are people who are making billions of dollars trading cocaine back and forth or something like that. No, they're literally like charging excise taxes on on imported goods and cheating inspectors and stuff. I mean, like it's literally just, we're just a bunch of middlemen who are going to come in and like break your shit unless you pay us. I mean, it really is. In that sense, it's similar to The Big Racket, although The Big Racket was obviously a lot more overt. It's just sort of a standard action film to a certain degree. Right. This is really trying to like ground itself in this very real time and place, and I think that that's really. I've kind of said it a couple of times, but I think that's really the real thing that I love about the film. Is just that it's not shot documentary style, but it might as well be. Like it feels very down to earth. Like
you were saying, how the little bursts of violence and stuff in this are like really brutal, kind of realistic. When his partner there decides to go straight laced and try to help out, and he gets run over by a car for his fucking
his hands get run over. I mean, this, Django right there. I just I had that moment. I mean, it does feel like this is a film, although it's made a couple of years before a couple of the other ones that we've mentioned, but it does feel like it's like deliberately referencing that kind of thing. That in a sense, the corrupt cop who gets his this is sort of a modern day Western in that way, because he's a man. I mean, he does have a name, obviously, but he's certainly a sort of that figure of the sort of morally ambiguous anti-hero. Yeah, that's the sort of place where that person would be in a modern society. I'm a cop, but I'm kind of also grifting a little on the side, and I'm willing to make deals with bad guys in order to get worse guys and that sort of thing. And then for his trouble of trying to actually reform and do something that is probably the right thing to do, he gets his hands crushed and murdered.
Yeah, although at least for a while he gets to sport a little mustache and curly hair and sleep with prostitutes. So it's not all bad.
Do you think they're all prostitutes? I kind of got the sense that some of them might have been doing it for free at that point. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure, because he's supposed to be a ladies' man, right? So it's like this guy's just pulling women off the street, basically, just by how he looks. And then it's kind of interesting. I got to see more films from Italy, but it seems like it's almost kind of a maybe it's a I don't know, cultural stereotype or something like that, but it seems like all the ladies' men, or, you know, the sort of secondary guys that are a little bit more loose morally, all have like mustaches and curly hair. So I don't know if that's an Italian thing or not. But
it's the Willie Ames from Zapped character. No, we're I just keep referencing movies we've already done. You have to list to every They Must Be Destroyed to get this episode. You know?
That's right. Or just check the wiki. Yeah.
Or just check the wiki. It's fine. No. There really is this sense of. I mean, you think about like the '70s porno stash thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And I think that was just a look that, you know, that was just sort of like what I mean, Burt Reynolds looked at something like that around this time.
Yeah.
You know, so the mustache and slightly frizzy hair thing, I think, was just a look that was popular at the time. All over, not just in Italy.
Yeah.
But, you know, the 70s, you know, very few people got out of the 70s with their dignity intact. We'll just leave it there.
I really like this one. I do like that it does ground things a little bit more. It's much more interested in making it feel realistic, and I think the action scenes are more realistic in that they're short. They're really short and effective. It feels like what would actually happen in real life instead of like some prolonged big chase scene and a big shootout and shit like that. You know, it's not an action film. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say about it other than it's just really, really good, and I'm glad we watched it because it's kind of a forgotten film.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say is just the main title is by Bacalov. That's how I discovered the film, and it's amazing. And I'm assuming it's going to be on this podcast episode. So yeah, check that out. Yeah, no, I really did like the score. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's really well made. It's again difficult to talk too thematically about just because there are like big chunks of the plot that I don't quite understand yet.
Right.
And you know, our production schedule is sometimes you just have to dive in, but. I would highly recommend this one. I hope that, again, this is one that actually does get some kind of American DVD release or North American DVD release at some point, or just becomes a little bit more available, because right now it is a little bit hard to come by, although you can download it on Rarelust. So
yeah, I'll be providing the Rarelust link, and I'll just mention there actually is box office info for this. Apparently, its total earnings reached somewhere in 1.03 billion euros. Which
euros?
Maybe it's not euros. Maybe it's just
probably euro. Probably yeah.
But that seems pretty high still.
Yeah, I mean that's more than $50, I think. So
yeah. So wow, way to go.
Is there a budget
no
there, because that might give us the information we need.
I'm guessing the budget couldn't have been that big though. Like man.
Yeah. I was just looking at the Italian Wikipedia page, which I still have open, and it doesn't give me any of that information. So, too bad.
Yeah. Well,
come on, Italy. Come on, Italian Wikipedia.
Why
don't you give me this information in English already?
Yeah. I need up to date stats. I need you to.
I need up to the microsecond information for this podcast that will go out to 100 people for free in the language I already speak about a movie from 1973.
Yeah, I don't know why we keep these people around.
I don't either. Why do we pay Italian Wikipedia?
Motherfuckers. Okay.
Hold on. Do people actually listen to this show? Because I don't know why at this point.
I don't know. But we do appreciate it for some reason, whatever sort of masochists you motherfuckers are. Okay, we can move on now to the Heroin Busters from 1977.
You want us to waltz into the courthouse dressed up like cops? You gotta be crazy. Get down! Down!
Give me some money. I swear to you, I swear last time I'll ever ask. I need it.
We're all son of a bitches.
You're all rotten, thinking bastards! You killed him! Get away from me!
Cartagena, Hong Kong, Amsterdam, Rome, and then it is shipped to the United States. Now, if we can break the circuit, then we can clear up your country, too. The people we are dealing with are not only organized, they're probably intelligent enough to come up with a better cover than this shack. Who do you work for, and who were you bringing the stuff to?
Nobody. I work for me.
3 kilos.
And he's the one that got at the airport. And this guy must be a fat cat.
You want to trade any stuff, you're going to need my okay. You understand? You understand?
Newcomers bust our balls.
Will you open that bag, please? Locatelo! Levantelo!
Send me here to make a deal. Not to play at target practice.
Directed by Enzo G. Castellari. Written by, again, Massimo Dorita, as well as Galliano Giusso. And is starring our old friend Fabio Testi as Fabio. David Hemmings from Deep Red as Hamilton, who looks a lot older here, by the way, from Deep Red. He aged a lot in a couple years. Sherry Buchanan as Vera. Wolfongo Soldati as Gilo. Massimo Vanni as Massimo. Angelo Ragusa as Denim. Romano Pupo as Enforcer. Sergio Ruggeri as Sergio. Joshua Sinclair as Gianni. And Leonardo Scavino as Grass. And I'll let you get into the synopsis there, Dan.
All right. This one I'm literally just stealing from IMDb. And this one I don't feel bad about just because there's not as much story in this.
Right.
But this one is a cold-blooded cop, Fabio Testi, goes undercover to take down an international drug syndicate. But when Interpol agent David Hemmings joins the investigation, the case takes a deadly detour into depravity and violence. Can the two tough detectives trapped in a criminal underworld stay alive long enough to ignite a citywide massacre?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I guess that's supposed to be prevent a citywide massacre.
Yeah.
Night. I don't think they were trying to ignite the city, but
although they kind of did at the same time.
They did. So that was written by IMDb user WXJUH, and you sucked at that. You sucked at that, dude. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Fabio a cold-blooded cop.
Yeah, he's certainly. Well, I mean, he's not a detective. He's not very cold-blooded either. Exactly. So
yeah, no one who wears that many neckerchiefs can be all that cold-blooded. I mean, Jesus Christ.
We need to talk about this costume. We need to do this.
Yeah. So I'll just let you get right into it. Give your sort of initial impression and get into that costume.
Before we talk about anything else about this film, this costume is amazing. So Fabio Testi wears a complete blue denim outfit. It's blue jeans with what looked to be UGG boots several decades before Uggs became a thing, with the heels, and one of the heels has a little heroin apparatus
right
to the boot, and we find out in a pivotal scene. He's wearing blue jeans boots with his jeans tucked in. Then he's got a blue denim jacket that is cinched at the waist or above his waist, almost at chest level, with a red,
pink.
A red. Is it pink? I don't know. It's some either dark pink or light red. It looks like a faded red sort of color.
Could be
tied with a belt or ribbon of some kind, and then underneath that he's got a V-neck, a dirty V-neck white shirt, and then a baseball cap, which is some generic Apollo mission baseball cap.
He looks like something an American trucker would wear.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like this is the reason. First of all, I think this is an amazing costume.
Yeah,
I am. But it's so obviously this is what some Italian costume designer thought a tough American drug dealer looked like. Because he's wearing cowboy boots, but it's completely wrong. He's wearing a denim jacket, but it's completely wrong.
Oh,
he's got stubble. He's got that very precise amount of stubble, and then an Apollo hat. This is how we code him as definitely American. Is he's got the Apollo hat?
Right. No, but I mean, okay. So tell me this: the first time you watched this, the opening scene is him walking through the city at night. Did you not immediately think he was just basically a gay gigolo?
Honestly, I don't even think I processed it on that level. It wasn't until I had been watching the film for a while, and the reason I go into that much detail is just because he wears it through the entire movie.
Yeah,
and honestly, Fabio Testi is amazing in this. I mean, I love both him and David Hemmings in this, by the way.
Yeah,
but when he takes off that fucking denim jacket. And he's just kind of standing laconic in corners and things, and he's kind of oh yeah, you look that is a nice looking man right there. I am definitely on board with this. I feel attracted to Fabio Testi here. Oh, and also he's got some kind of beaded necklace, like a chain.
Right.
That's some kind of it looks. So they're coding him as a hippie as well. So it's just fascinating mishmash of stuff. But he wears this through the entire film. He's wearing it's like his uniform that he wears every day. It's like a fascinating look, and you can't talk about the film without talking about how he looks in it, because you're going to see him a lot in this, it just gets more ridiculous the longer you stare at it.
The only time he doesn't wear that, he changes into something that's even more 70s in a lot of ways. He's got this goddamn this corduroy trench coat,
right?
with a neckerchief. Nowhere other than the 70s do you see a fucking corduroy trench coat. That's that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's very again, the 70s. Nobody got out with their dignity intact.
No.
And Fabio Testi does a pretty damn good job of pulling it off. I'm not gonna say he doesn't, but my God.
Yeah.
The film itself is pretty much just exactly what that costume would make you think the film is, honestly. There's a lot of really kind of cool action in it. A lot of, this is the sort of thing that, I like to say would be the kind of movie playing in a bar in a better movie,
Right.
there's a lot of chase sequences, a lot of kind of fairly standard, but well executed. I'm not trying to dismiss it. Fairly standard kind of 70s action sequences. There's a lot of kind of tough guy talk, and it's basically just 70s cop film almost. This feels like something that's a little bit. I mean, it's significantly more gritty than this, but it feels like something that could be like 70s cop show in America. Like if you just ran 3 episodes together, it was sort of like has a sort of a similar look and feel to that.
You know what I thought this sort of felt like? It felt like a precursor to actually 80s like action cop films. Yep. Like it felt very much like something like Black Rain or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly because of the strength of the drug angle and the fact that we do get one thing I guess we'll have to talk about is the kind of extended sequence in the middle where we're basically just following drug addicts being drug addicts. That's definitely something that feels very much more of the 80s than the 70s to me. Also, just the scale of the film. I mean, again, it was interesting to kind of see the police serve the citizens after this, just because then you're going back to, kind of more, import-export duties and Port Authority and all that. Whereas, how many fucking, like every crime movie in the 80s and 90s was basically about drugs, right? And usually this, like, international syndicate who's shipping things around, and you got to get the guy on the inside, and this is a fairly standard plot, but I wonder if it was a little bit more, if it felt a little bit more innovative in 73 or 70, whatever, 77 when this. I think
it does, because this is really fast paced, and it's kind of like really visually interesting too, just because it has so many different locations that they shot. Like, I mean, I believe New York, Rome, I think maybe Hong Kong at one point. And so they're jumping all over the world here with this. So they got a bunch of nice locations. There's obviously some money behind this one.
Yeah.
And I think
it's well made. I'm not trying to dismiss the film. It is it's well made.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is it's essentially the Big Racket with money behind it, like more beefed up, because it's slicker. Production wise, it just looks really great, and it's kind of a big comic book kind of thing, right? It's that broad. It's got that kind of especially the biplane or the 2 planes in the that definitely feels like it came out of an 80s movie. Yeah, I mean, this one sort of just whittles down the characters to their base. Like, I think there's even more character depth in the Big Racket than you find in this one for the most part. This one seems more interested in being an anti-drug commercial than it does giving you strong characters. And so, I mean, you get these like really close-ups of people sticking needles in themselves. And I have a question. There's the scene where Fabio is in the stairwell with the druggy guy that he sort of hooks up with. Was that meant to be a cut to what was actually going up in the apartment, or is that the druggy guy having some sort of hallucination fantasy scene?
I think somebody cut in a Jess Franco film for 30 seconds. I think that's what was actually going on.
No. Because it's just testing.
So let me tell you how I approached that scene, by the way, because this is funny. So I was watching the film, and a lot of times with these, I'll kind of watch the first half and then kind of watch the second half the next day or something. Just kind of. So I was like, I got to go to bed. So he gets into the hallway. He gets into that stairway, and I'm like, all right, I can, there's like, hey, you mind if we talk for a second? Okay. I hit stop. I kind of come back the next day. I sit down to it. I hit play, and suddenly there are like naked women on my screen. And I thought, did I hit the right movie? So I had to go back and like rewatch did I miss something? Was that like what the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
So I went back and like rewound it like 5 minutes and went, no, it really is that. Like, there's no lead up to this whatsoever. Watching that scene, I think that we're meant to take it as sort of indicative of what the drug addict guy thinks is going on upstairs.
Okay.
I think it's pretty realistic in terms of obviously she's sleeping with her for money. So basically there's a girl sex scene, which by the way, it's a girl sex scene to the degree that the way that women have sex with each other is always where one of them will sit completely motionless and then the other will drape her hair over her.
Right.
That actually is how women have sex with each other. I've witnessed this, in person.
Mhm.
They certainly don't do anything more than that. Like that's
No.
just how it works. My wife was watching that with me, and she's like, "Yeah, that's how straight girls fuck." I'm like, I mean, she's a little straight girl. It's fine. Yeah, it was pretty amusing. But no. So there is this moment, and obviously, I think that we're supposed to read that as because the blonde is a little bit older, and I think she's like just paying the other girl for sex.
Right.
And they've just kind of kicked the dude out onto the stairwell because he's just not allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, essentially, this is like, look at the depths that we have to go to get drug money. You know, like, which doesn't really seem that bad to me, but you know, whatever. Yeah. Compared to the other sequences of people like licking heroin off spoons that have been in the toilet.
Yeah,
sort of thing,
considering some of the stuff that goes on here, they're getting off pretty easy for like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I mean, he's supposed to be like being emasculated or whatever. I don't know. It strikes me as a little bit of a tonal mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm not. It's a pretty well done scene. I don't know. I kind of think of it like the sequences of Nicole Kidman kind of fucking the guy who's the military officer fantasy in Tom Cruise's head in Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh yeah.
In that it's this is the like emasculating figure of what this sex is, because he's not allowed to just see it. He has to kind of sit outside and wait for it. And so it's just this fantasy version, you know, in his head. Like that's what he thinks is going on, which, you know, in the broad picture, I think, yeah, they're clearly she's having sex for money, but I don't think it looks like that. You know? It's too soft focus for one thing, you know.
Yeah, what they should have done is they should have, okay, so you have the original sort of fantasy thing going on in the druggie's head. And then once they finish and the woman comes downstairs, then they should have just really amped up. Hey, we need some more tits in this movie. Then we get Fabio Testi standing in the stairwell for 5 minutes, thinking, "Oh, this is what happened." And we get another scene.
And his version is way more, way more like Americanized. You know, like suddenly they're wearing cowboy hats.
They're wearing cowboy hats.
Because, you know, it's an Italian movie with an American character. So it has to be, you know. And of course, David Hemmings is like, you know, the ultimate Brit in this movie as well, right?
Oh yeah. And if David Hemmings was in that staircase, what it would have been is would have been the two women running around, having their clothes ripped off and running around in their underwear really quickly with Benny
Hill, yeah, and then they drink tea afterwards.
Exactly. Because British people don't like to have sex, so.
No, they that's how British people have sex. Don't you? You know, tea is not just code for sex; it's actually biologically how British people fuck.
Oh wow!
Yeah, no, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. Damn.
Wow. No, I guess I'm more experienced than you, Lee. I'm sorry. You know.
Next time I talk to either James, Jack, or Kit, I'm gonna have to ask them some questions. Holy
yeah,
fuck.
you'll have to we'll have to bring them on and just kind of ask. So, like, how does the T penis interaction work?
Yeah,
you know,
well,
I never quite got that.
Is that where the term teabagging comes from? What the fuck is going on? Yeah, man.
This is the most fun episode ever, right? No, I actually really like the stairwell sequence. I thought that was, and I again just to talk about Fabio Testi, he's amazing in the whole film, but it's really because the drug addict who looks a little bit like the rock star from Revolver.
Yes,
he's got the same kind of like David Cassidy, like Italian David Cassidy, a little bit more facial hair thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's kind of sitting there and it's like, "Hey man, can you talk for a minute?" And then Fabio Testi's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And he just kind of leans up against I mean, he's got this just super cool attitude towards him throughout the entire. Kind of sounds like I'm damning it with faint praise, you know, but he's really compelling in this. You know, I really admired his acting, especially after seeing him in something like Revolver, where he's got such a different kind of, you know, much more skittish kind of role. I mean, this is a guy with some range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like just watching more and more of Testi's films, it just feels like it's a kind of shame that he's not a bigger star than what he turned out to be, right? Because he really is. Again, that sort of comparison I was making of Franco Nero and Fabio Testi is kind of like George Clooney and Brad Pitt, where they don't get taken as seriously because they're so fucking beautiful, you know. It's like so yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird to see that he didn't become a bigger star, but
Hey, well, when and again, there was a friend of mine who was watching The Big Racket. She had come over, and I had to watch it for the podcast, and she was like giggling, like his name is Fabulous Testes. Like, yeah, pretty much. And you see him in those skinny jeans, and you know why. We should talk about the prison sequence, maybe. The jail sequence. Man, that's you got to give it credit. This is the same guy who kind of ends up. We kind of follow him around through a third of the film because he becomes the sort of because the whole plot is basically built around David Hemmings is an Interpol agent who's trying to work in Italy to prevent this drug syndicate from shipping drugs all over the world. So they're trying to clamp down on heroin. And they're going to do this in Italy because it's like the center of the drug trafficking ring, whatever.
Yeah.
They capture Fabio Testi, like bringing drugs in, and then they essentially turn him, and they're like, well, you're going to be an informant for us. And it sort of becomes The Departed for a little bit, or it could have become sort of a knockoff version, although 40 years too early. But, it sort of gets that sort of general police informant vibe. But then it kind of moves in a different direction because, Fabio Testi ends up in prison for a while, and then he's sort of like trying to infiltrate this underworld, this local underworld, and then he sort of is having to play both sides against each other, and we're not quite sure where his loyalties lie all the time. And I think even at the end, I think it's questionable, although I think the film kind of gives us an answer, but I don't know that it's a very sophisticated answer, if that makes sense. But he does end up in this prison cell with this guy who is lacking heroin. He needs a fix. He needs his fix. He's jonesing. Not only does he puke, sort of you just see. It's a pretty horrifying sequence. It's a pretty harrowing sequence is kind of what I'm going for this kind of film, because you don't really expect quite this level of bodily fluid.
Yeah.
But he does like hawk up a loogie, and then you get this kind of green stuff kind of on the concrete floor. And then he pisses himself on screen.
Right.
It's way over the top, first of all, right? But, this guy does not look that bad off for lacking heroin. But it's also really mesmerizing that they went to that degree.
Did you not catch that Fabio Testi actually is an Italian policeman undercover?
Oh, is he undercover?
Yeah.
I thought he was an informant.
No, he's actually an undercover policeman.
I see.
But hey, that's actually cool though, because the film definitely tries to kind of keep that in the dark for the first opening of the film, where you're just kind of thinking, yeah, he's a drug guy who gets turned or whatever. But no, actually, he is an undercover policeman, because as the film goes on, you see the scenes between him and Hemmings where it's obvious they know each other and they've worked together before.
Yeah, I was thinking that was just they were kind of gaining familiar, or there was a cat and mouse game kind of that was happening through that. I that's how I read it. So, no, I completely missed that. Apparently, I'm just not watching films anymore. I'm just kind of glancing at them. Because that's a pertinent detail.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing is, at first, towards the end, I thought the whole thing is he's trying to get away while, helping them catch this other bad guy. And then he's in the plane, and it's yeah, we caught the bad guys, right? And it's well, who's the bad guys? Well, we're the, I thought it was trying to make a little bit more sophisticated moral point. But if he's been an undercover cop the whole time, it's well, that was a pointless little exchange now, wasn't it?
Yeah, that I was going to say that ending exchange is just, it shows you why most of these Italian films tend to end right after the last big action scene, instead of giving you some dialogue afterwards, because usually it's pretty bad. It's just how we wrap this film up. Let's make up some bullshit. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, this film is really, man, when it does get into the drug stuff and the drug users, it's look how it feels like modern version of Reefer Madness to a certain degree. It's just because it's kind of naive about drug use. It seems like it puts forward kind of that idea of a couple puffs on one of those marijuana cigarettes, and eventually you'll be doing heroin.
Right. It does do the slippery slope kind of thing, and this is something that we kind of run into. I guess this is the sort of thing that we run into over and over again as we discuss these sorts of crime films, and these particularly ones that have heavy police involvement. Because essentially, if you're a film production company, you want the cops to be nice to you.
Yeah.
know? And so you tend to make films that sort of portray them in a positive light. And so that's why, cops always get to be heroes unless there's basically always like a one hero cop who's like against the system, who's doing things the right way. And yet you never get this sort of sense that like the whole like idea of the kind of policing we're doing is just fundamentally flawed. And so it's particularly when you have, sort of drug interdictions, it always has to be, look at how it's like we have to rub the audience's nose in how terrible heroin is in order to justify the stuff that we're doing in the rest of the film.
Right.
And I mean, it is sort of an interesting exercise in all of these kinds of films to just flip it on its head and say, what if the druggies were the good guys here? Can we kind of interpret it through that lens? No.
Well, there was even that sort of, I think you mentioned when we did The Big Racket, there was kind of that element to the baddies in that, where that you were saying these are the counterculture guys who are rebelling against the corrupt system or whatever,
Yeah. I mean, I think Police Service Citizens is trying to do that a little bit more. I mean, there's very little political angle to Heroin Busters at all.
Right.
And this is especially, God, I can't believe I missed that detail.
No, I mean, honestly, I didn't catch that the first time I watched it either. So
okay.
I mean,
yeah, I thought they just turned him as an informant. So that's completely no. Knowing that he's supposed to be this undercover narcotics officer from the beginning, it kind of takes any sense of questioning the morality of these guys' actions out of the loop. I think probably one of yours as well, but. Probably one of the best sequences in the film is this heist sequence. It goes through this thing for about 5-10 minutes. It becomes a heist movie. Fabio Testi has to kind of go in. He basically is sneaking drugs out from under the cops' noses.
Yeah.
Which actually ends up like a dude gets killed during that process. A cop gets killed while this stuff is being stolen, and I thought that was if Testi is just an informant and his role in this is being covered up by Hemmings, it's sort of an indictment of Hemmings' character, and that he kind of lets this happen. And is kind of, again, not playing by the rules. He's kind of going outside the law and all that sort of thing. If Testi is himself a police officer, that it becomes a little bit more blunted, because it's not, you haven't gone in league with this guy who is part of the the very underworld you're trying to stop. It's just another cop, and then like, okay, things went wrong. You know what I mean?
I don't remember an actual cop being killed in that sequence. I remember Testi is being escorted by two guys who are not cops. They're just in disguise. And one of them gets shot and killed, and then he runs out into the parking lot with the other one. And
I thought that guy, the first guy, because there's a guy who gets shot in the police station, who's one of the two guys. I thought that guy had a gun in his shoe, and he kills a guy while he's trying to escape. Like before he's shot, he manages to shoot somebody.
I can't remember, because I know Testi immediately goes after one of the guys who's with him when he tries to pull a gun when they're doing the heist, when he tries to shoot one of the cops who actually resists, because he's like, and he still tries to play it off as don't fucking fire your gun here because they'll hear us. We got to get out of here. And then when they get into the parking garage, he ends up shooting the other guy before he kills that cop. Like he shoots the cop once in the leg or whatever.
Right.
And then Testi ends up having to kill that guy before he murders the cop.
Right. Yeah, no, I was thinking there was one. I might just be completely mistaken because I only watched it once. But I was thinking there was an actual cop who was killed in that sequence, but I might have just been confused. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I mean, this is a movie I'm gonna rewatch plenty of times in my life anyway, so I'll have to go back and see. But
do you own this one?
Oh yeah, I own this one.
Yeah. No, it's streaming on Amazon Prime right now. So
yeah, but yeah, I really like this. I like all the action stuff because it's just fun. Like it's just inventive. I mean, there's the part where basically also I'll just set it out for people listening. The last third of this film is just one big chase scene, basically.
Oh yeah.
And it's it's Fabio Testi gets discovered as being an undercover cop. And now he's on the run from the fucking gang of drug dealers. So they're all chasing him. Not only like just the regular thugs, but the fucking scientists they got, like the chemists they got.
That is the greatest chemistry lab in cinema history, by the way.
It's awesome. It's in a warehouse, and then there are walls built around it to hide it, and the walls are basically just the boxes that they're storing the drugs in,
Right.
as well as like big stacks of unassembled boxes as well. Those are the walls of the drug lab, which seems kind of dangerous. Actually, that seems highly flammable.
No, I don't know exactly. I mean, it's heroin, so I mean, are they just purifying from the plant? I'm not sure exactly what they're supposed to be doing there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it seems like that's what's being done in like Afghanistan or wherever the heroin's actually coming from.
Right.
Maybe they're just doing like testing on it or something, in which case it's, I mean, God, that's even, no, I because I'm a, my day job, I'm a chemist, I work in a lab, I'm always laughing at, like, nobody has any safety goggles, nobody's wearing gloves, they're scientists because they're wearing, like, lab coats that aren't even the right kind of lab coats, so it's fine, nobody knew what personal protective equipment was in the 70s, we didn't invent that concept until after Reagan was president.
But I love it because the chase scene's got all this kind of inventive stuff going on. Like, there's the one scene where he shoots through a metal pipe to kill one of the guys coming at him.
Yeah, no, that was great. Reminded me of one of the Lee Van Cleef movies with the two.
It was one of the Sabata ones.
One of the Sabata films. It reminded me of that just slightly. Sorry, just referencing old episodes.
Yeah.
But no, that was a really nifty little moment, and I kind of thought, just because I thought they were going to go for this a little bit more comedic thing, like he shoots one guy through the pipe, and then I thought he was going to like find a different pipe and shoot a second, because he shoots one guy and then you get a shot of the next guy, and he comes running, and I thought there was a shot. I thought for a second he was going to like find a second pipe and shoot through it again.
Right. This is my favorite gag in it, where he gets a hold of one of the bad guys and he chokes him out, and basically his gun is in view of where the bad guys can shoot him if he sticks his head out from around the wall. So what he does is he chokes the bad guy out and then throws his body down on top of the gun and then uses his body to drag the gun to him so he can use it. I love that.
No, that's a nifty little moment. I like that a lot. Yeah, and of course, we can't talk about this film without talking about the main bad guy, who looks a little bit like David Arquette, in kind of a good way.
Yeah, he was also the main bad guy in Big Racket as well.
Oh yeah, I thought he did look familiar. So yeah, he's really good here. I really like. He's always smiling. That's always fun. He's just smiling through the whole thing.
Yeah, he's always got a cigarette holder going there.
Yep. No, it's a nice little performance there, and just this is a film filled with pretty boys, basically. Even David Hemmings, who I think is really great here. You're right. He does. I can't tell if he's actually that much older or if he's just sort of made up to be older.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, he definitely just does look like. He looked like a 30-something guy in Deep Red, and here he looks like he's mid-40s, and it wasn't that many years between the two films. So
yeah, no, I'm gonna look up right now. He was born in 1941, so he would have been.
Oh, yeah, maybe he was made up to make look older. I don't know, but
I think they just gave him some. I think they just put a little gray in his hair, and I think that makes a big difference.
But he does sell it though. I mean, he does look like the professional Interpol agent, like totally believable.
Yeah, I think if he's got such a boyish look to him, and I think also because he's British, it just sort of like I think the filmmakers just decided, okay, let's age him up just a little bit to sort of give him that little bit of gravitas.
Right.
But I think he's phenomenal in the film, and I think one of the things that I admired is also the stunt work, because Testi, I think, definitely did all his own stunts, and I think Hemmings did some of his own as well.
Yeah, Testi obviously did a lot of his stuff, because just him being a stuntman anyway, he always sort of did his stuff. But Testi was also a licensed pilot, so he did all of his aerial stunts as well. So
right, that was another question I had when I thought that he was just some like drug mule. I'm like, and suddenly he can fly a plane. Like
exactly, yeah.
Maybe served in Vietnam. I don't know that.
I do like though. Like,
he's supposed to be an American, so that would sort of make sense. He was a Vietnam vet. He shows up.
Right. I do like how even though like the stunt work and stuff is really good, the fight scenes are still those really hackneyed Italian fight scenes where everyone's doing karate chops and shit. There's that one scene where they take down the druggy guy that Testi befriends or whatever, where he's out trying to sell, and all these cops just jump him. They're all throwing karate chops down on the back of his neck. Like they're, it just looks fucking ridiculous.
Was it this film or was it the other one where there's a fight scene in a restaurant?
I think that was Big Racket, wasn't it?
No, well, there was one in Big Racket, but anyway, there's a fight scene. There was definitely, or maybe it's in a bar, but I remember there was definitely one fight scene where it was just shot. It was very obvious that there was, 3 feet of space between the fist and the face,
right?
in one shot. Which, I'm very forgiving towards film for that. Particularly kind of fairly low budget stuff. If the new Avengers movie has that kind of shit in it, then I'm going to be critical of it. But when it's made for $4 in 1977, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to complain too much about that.
Right.
But there was definitely one. I think it was in the Heroin Busters, but there's one shot where it's like, well, clearly that was a stage punch. There's no question that didn't look realistic at all.
It's also interesting how they stick like comedy in this as well. Like there's these little comedy moments, especially in the final chase. They felt like they needed to punctuate it with a little bit of comedy, apparently, to let off some steam. Where they just run into this small little town, and there's this little small town drama thing going on with a bunch of locals, and I think it's a train station or something like that.
Right.
And they're just having their usual day, and then all of a sudden Fabio Testi comes bursting in, and everyone's like shocked, and then the drug dealers are soon behind them, and everyone's all upset now. Their entire day's ruined because these people walked into their lives.
Right.
There's a scene where David Hemming has to not quite commandeer, but get a ride on a motorcycle, and he ends up having to. I wrote my notes here: motorcycle with airbags. That was my note for that.
I love that moment where he's sitting there and he's got to grab hold of the girl, and then like he feels her up, like he's trying not to. She's like, "Oh no, go ahead, it's fine." And she's got a little smile. It's like, yeah, David Hemmings is gonna get laid at the end of this.
Yeah, he got her number definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that she's like, yeah, this guy's cute, sure.
Yeah,
and I mean, in so many of these kinds of films, and this is what I kind of love about that moment, is just that in so many of these films, that would come across as a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
But I think the actors in that moment just do play it in the sense where he's like legitimately doesn't want it, but he needs to hold on.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, go ahead, it's fine."
Yeah.
And she's she's into it, and the performances sometimes will kind of sell a moment that might be a little bit cringy otherwise. But I didn't get a cringe from that. I just got to like, oh, it's Italy. Everybody's kind of fucking each other in Italy, right? Like it's fine.
Yeah, those Italians. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the prostitutes in both of these movies, but particularly the one in sorry to go back to Police Serve the Citizens. There's that first prostitute that he interviews. She's got the bigger hair. I kind of love that character. No, this is just a really good era for Italian cinema.
Yeah.
It's just fun, and particularly the Heroin Busters is a lot of just kind of goofy fun.
Oh,
it doesn't take itself too seriously either.
I should also mention the homing device they use in this film looks a lot more phony than the one they use in White Heat. I'm just saying.
No, it does. It kind of looks like a Galaga cabinet, just a little bit, or like a Simon Says or something. It's very it's very built around. I kept watching this. I just kept thinking this kind of feels like a John Pertwee episode.
Right.
Like I feel like at any moment John Pertwee's going to come around the corner and
gonna come around in his fucking car and
in the fucking Whomobile, and Katie Manning's going to be standing there and it's going to be like, "Come on, doctor, we have to go get the heroin." And so the little goofy tracker. I mean, I definitely was thinking about White Heat. In fact, that was a moment. Again, my wife kind of watched a lot of this with me, and she didn't watch White Heat with me, and so she's like, "What the fuck is that? Like, what is that supposed to be? Is that supposed to be a homing beacon or some kind of detector?" I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't see White Heat."
Yeah.
I kind of do want to do like a side by side comparison of those, just because we watched them side by side. It's a aging tech in cop movies is always.
Right. But yeah, I got nothing else to really say about this. I just really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was Castellari's last crime film of the 70s, and I think he goes out with a pretty effective bang on this one. It's just a lot of fun throughout. It's never slow. It's never boring. So it works.
It's a weird pairing of the two films, just because Police Serve the Citizens is very dark and very gritty and realistic, whereas the Heroin Busters is, I mean, again, the political side of this, I mean, it just doesn't exist, and I think that's it's almost because this is fairly late in the genre, and I think that there is a sense in which let's just do the fun version for once, let's not have to worry about a kind of deeper message.
We've had enough Italian films complaining about government corruption the last 20 years we've been doing them, so
Yeah, which again makes it feel more 80s, because the 80s kind of, I mean, we're leading into the Miami Vice era at this point, which had no political subtext. I mean, the political subtext was always, I mean, there's never not a political subtext, but it's always the status quo is great, drugs are bad, don't do them. That's essentially what this movie
Miami Vice had an episode with alien abduction or something in it as well, and it was played up straight. Miami Vice has no real legs to stand on for anything for the most part.
That's fair. I have not watched any Miami Vice in 20 years, and I didn't watch that much before that, so I'll kind of grant your superior knowledge on that. But it does. I mean, the Heroin Busters is one that I would definitely approach just as sort of a fun sit with friends and have a beer with, sort of movie. It feels like a much kind of goofier portrait of this stuff, and even when it has the sort of more harrowing moments, it's still going to be something that you're basically going to be, entertained by. So I actually like talking about it more than I liked watching it, if that makes sense. It's more fun sitting and talking with Lee about it. But I mean, it's got a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of ridiculous stuff. It's about 90 minutes long. It's worth a watch. It's definitely worth a watch.
Fun rock soundtrack from Goblin too, by the way. A little different from the stuff they were doing in this era. So it's always nice to hear a Goblin do something a little different for a soundtrack. You can get this on DVD from Blue Underground. That's the copy I have. It was released in 2006, and this is on the Full Moon streaming service as well. Yeah.
Yep. If you're an Amazon member and you pay the extra few bucks a month, you can watch this as much as you want to. And it's a good print. It looked really nice. I didn't have any complaints about it.
Yeah, the Blue Underground, they fucking took some special care in all these Poliziotteschi's and stuff that they released in the mid 2000s. So if you get the Blue Underground DVD or the streaming, they're gonna look good. So no worries there. Okay, I think we can move on to end the show here. Daniel, tell people where they can find you.
Best place to find me is to just go and check me out on Twitter at Daniel E. Harper. And anything that I manage to do, any productive work, any creative stuff that I do, will just go up there. So follow me. Say hi.
Yeah.
We'll be friends. It's great.
Yeah. And you can find us, of course, at tmbdos.podbean.com for our iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook links. Please join our Facebook group. It's the best way to get in contact with us, to have your comments and questions read on the air and responded to, and just to find out what's going on with the podcast in general. And the next episode is going to be Thief and the Asphalt Jungle. Might be 2 weeks from now, because I don't think my schedule is going to permit us to record for next week, so might be a little break in there between for you guys. So
all right, well maybe we'll do an intermission episode or something, but
yeah, maybe.
Whenever I try to promise one, I never actually deliver, so that's kind of that's why I say maybe. But
yeah,
I'll try to get something for you. It'll be fun. Just go listen to Wrong with Authority 4 again, because I know everybody already listened to that once.
Yeah,
go download that again, because we put a lot of work into that one, and somebody should have to suffer through that as much as I did.
All right, but until next time, thank you, Daniel, for joining me, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For past episodes and links to our iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook group, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. There you can also find links to other podcasts and websites of similar interest. If you subscribe to us on iTunes, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and a review. Please join our Facebook group, as it's the single best place to get in contact with the hosts and to know what's coming up on the podcast. Thank you. Drive through.